What is up, y'all? Happy Saturday. Currently, we are about to talk about what everybody's talking about around the world, the global pandemic, COVID-19. Hit the intro. Obviously, there's so many things that are going on in the world right now. Some countries are being quarantined. They're completely, the citizens are not allowed to actually leave their homes, and it's really difficult for them to get the supplies they need and just like any medical attention, and it's all really bad stuff all around, which is really unfortunate and very saddening. And honestly, the way that the United States is approaching how they're dealing with this virus is really not the best way, and I think to a certain extent it's definitely disappointing that some of our leaders in the government are just not taking the drastic measures that need to be taken. Honestly, the fact of the matter is that this event, this entire pandemic, is just affecting so many aspects of our lives. And it's not just a spring break. Like, some younger kids, the younger generation, just see this as extra time on their hands. I mean, if they're younger, that's fine, they don't know any better, but it just kind of really saddens me that some people don't really see how important and how big of a deal this really is. I know that some people are on their spring break right now, especially college students who just finished their midterms and they really just want to have a fun time, which is understandable, but you should not be, out on the beach partying just to get drunk or whatever. No, stay home. It's really important to know that even though you don't really feel like you are developing any of the symptoms, you may actually have the virus, and so going out for no apparent reason, just have fun, is actually putting everybody's lives at risk. Do everybody a favor, just stay at home where it's safe, because the more interaction we have between people just in one community, even let alone all across the country, the more possibility, or the higher the chance of the virus being spread. And like I said, you might not even know that you have it, and so if you interact with people on your daily life, you actually, even though you don't physically touch them, but you're just in the vicinity of so many people in so many parts of your day that you don't even realize that. And so there are actually places that are essentially feeding grounds for this virus, such as religious gatherings, which is really unfortunate that a lot of people can't go to mass or go to the mosques to pray and everything, because that's essentially their spiritual lifting, and the fact that they can't go there is really saddening to me. As most of you guys know, a lot of people are actually working at home right now, and most people who are employed are still getting paid if they're paid by salary by their employees, which is awesome. And I think that all bosses should honestly pay their employees even on this leave of absence, I guess. But I mean, it could be difficult for the funds. There are some people who are out of a job right now. The people who work at entertainment facilities, because at times like these, that's not really needed. And so if your job pertains to something like that, or even something at a religious community, any job that has to do with a mass gathering is definitely just not encouraged to continue. And so people are out of a job right now, and it's really hard to have the income to pay their rent, which is really scary. And so hopefully the government is there was some recent news that they're gonna try and give some stipends to different families. Just the fact of being out of an income is really stressful for sure, let alone having not only being economically displaced, but being physically displaced. So there are people who are homeless, and of course you should be social distancing yourself from other people. It's just very unfortunate and difficult circumstances all around. It's definitely in times like these where local representatives really need to think about the extent to which their decisions will really affect their local communities, whether it's the federal government, just a whole mass of people. And so there are drastic measures that need to be taken, but it is really difficult to just evaluate what are the repercussions of whatever decisions they're going to make. So for instance, as all of you know, school was canceled. Making the decision to close those schools really affected many lives, especially those who, for instance, depend on 2 meals a day from those schools through federally funded school lunch programs. And so recently on the news, they were telling us that, for instance, in our local area, that different schools were offering lunches to families to come and pick them up, and they were also giving them homework packets just to kind of give the younger ones something to do, because now that all families are at home, which is amazing, there is a silver lining to be spending more time with each other. And so being able to have Wi-Fi, you can still continue your education, taking your classes, doing your homework, taking your exams, even amid this pandemic. Going off of that, it is really awesome that, to be honest, we are in a sense prepared to do that transition to an online format for schools. because, for instance, like Google Classroom or just like any like Blackboard, D2L, those types of websites that allow students to, continue their education online, I just think is amazing that we have that as an opportunity. That is like one silver lining, that we can at least continue education even though not everybody can continue working from home. It's really difficult for families who don't even have access to Wi-Fi either, let alone having a desktop or a laptop at home. I know some families that rely on like coffee shops with the Wi-Fi, or instance like Starbucks. With Starbucks closing, like specifically, and just other coffee shops in general closing their seating areas and just adopting the to-go model for picking up coffee, you really, like, now is the time to appreciate having Wi-Fi at home. And I believe, but I'm not certain, I did read an article that Spectrum actually is providing free Wi-Fi for students who need it and have never had Wi-Fi with them. I can try and put the link in the description below if you're interested. You can take a look at that. It's sometimes like these where you really feel grateful for having something as simple as Wi-Fi, but other people don't necessarily have access to. And so being able to have Wi-Fi, you can still continue like your education, taking your classes, doing your homework, taking your exams, like even amid this pandemic. With college students now taking their courses online, a lot of college students who weren't already home from spring break actually were essentially like evicted from their homes, or at least that's how they felt, their dorms or apartments, which, having short notice to leave just really feels a little stressful, let alone like what's already going on with this pandemic, and just taking like your online classes and just switching to that whole new format, just getting used to the new norm was already really difficult. Some people actually had to buy like expensive plane tickets because they were last minute, just to be able to, get home and leave their apartment, or whether it was like a train ticket or bus ticket or whatever. Other people had to ask their parents to come and like drive all the way up a few hours just to, pick them up and take them home. And their parents had to take off from work, which is, already difficult considering the economical hardships that are going on right now. Other students couldn't even leave their dorms or apartments, so they're currently on campus still. And that's partly because, at least for some students, they can't really leave home because they're international students, and also the visas that they have for education do not allow them to take online classes, or more than one, I believe, which is already difficult because if all of your classes are just suddenly online, it's out of your control. What do you even do at that point? Another consequence of this pandemic. Some people in general just didn't have the means or the funds to get their own transportation to get home, which can really be difficult. And it's in times like that where, as a commuter, how I just commute to campus, I really appreciate that I don't live that far away. However, if I was, in another state, where I needed to get home and maybe I didn't have the funds at the moment, to buy my own plane ticket, to buy a train ticket or bus ticket, or whatever it was, that could really put me in a difficult situation for sure. Also, guys, there's the whole aspect of testing for students. So I know that like ACT, SAT sessions, for testing sessions were essentially, I don't know if they were postponed or canceled, but I know that the DAT, dental admission test, and the MCAT were also postponed. I know that juniors who are trying to apply to college, whether it is undergrad or grad school, are just like stressing out even amidst like what else is going on. Also, AP exams for high schoolers is a little worrisome at the moment because, you literally spend the entire school year studying, practicing for this one exam, and I really hope that they're not canceled, if anything postponed, but it is very difficult, and I can imagine stressful for a lot of teachers and students who, whether they teach or they're learning those classes respectively, is just a very stressful time as well. And even for grad students who are, working on their dissertation for so long and looking forward to presenting their work or, their research and everything, that's also getting canceled. Seniors especially are even worried about graduation, whether it's even going to take place. I mean, the fact that that's even a possibility, I think, is really sad because you work, whether it's undergrad or graduate school, you work tirelessly, waking up early, just going to school for 4 years, only to hear that the iconic moment blocking the stage is actually not going to happen. I think that the fact that it might be taken away for some students, which it already has, like officially for some schools, is just really unfortunate. And I can't imagine what the seniors are going through. I mean, that's just another load to add to the pile of unfortunate events that's happening because of this pandemic. I mean, especially for college students, this is like a really sad moment because, they might not get a chance to say goodbye to their faculty. They might not have a chance to even visit like their campus before saying goodbye or anything, which is really unfortunate. Whether you're a senior, junior, sophomore, freshman, students that were looking forward to future events at the end of the spring semester like have to be canceled, for safety measures. But either way, it is really unfortunate because you look forward to something for the rest of the year and all of a sudden it's just taken from you and it's just not going to happen. I think that's just really sad, especially for the people who ended up like planning those events and just putting in the time and effort and the money into doing them. And I know like some people had like bought supplies or like bought an outfit and like, whatever the event was, like now it can't happen anymore, and that's just like really sad. So with everything canceling and everybody staying at home, obviously there is that whole idea of stress shopping where people are just stocking up on so many food because they think that doomsday is coming. They just want to be sure that they're ready. What I don't understand is why people are stressed out and they're trying to relieve their stress by buying like a bunch of toilet paper. Like whether the intention was to sell it for higher or just because you're stressed out, like I still don't understand like why. But honestly, it is in these times that we really need to care for each other, stick together, but stay apart. We do need to be there for one another, now more than ever, because we're not going to be able to fight this unless we stick together as a community and follow the guidelines that the CDC is giving us, social distancing. You better be practicing it. Just stay at home unless you need to go out, grab groceries or whatever it is, but do not, leave your house unnecessarily because you're going to be putting your life and other lives at risk. The elderly especially are most vulnerable to the virus because their immune system is just more compromised as you grow older. But there have been some really wholesome efforts that are going on in Chicago actually to help give like care packages to the elderly and just give them different supplies for them to just to last them the next few weeks or so, which is really, when I heard like stories like that on the news, like that really melted my heart. Those are some things that we should be doing for our community, so that just caring for the elderly, caring about people who need help, checking up on our neighbors. If you have an elderly neighbor, ask them if they need anything, just making sure that those people who are more vulnerable are not going to be putting themselves in danger because they need simple supplies. These are really difficult times. We're honestly going to remember these moments when we grow up and when we're older and like tell them to our kids. I'm sure you guys have seen like all those weird memes, but it is interesting like to see how different countries are taking like the actions that they're deciding to take, especially in like different communities and everything. In terms of the upcoming election, like for us here in the US, like that's even being discussed as a potential for being postponed. I mean, hopefully not, because with everything that's been going on for every last Tuesday election, people have been like either doing drive-by voting, or sounds really awkward, by the way, just driving by and just saying who you're voting for. There's also like mail-in voting, which is also interesting, but the fact that some college students are even moving back to their homes makes it actually a little bit more difficult for them to vote, and also just the fact that now that they are finally home, they need to be sure to include themselves in the census, because college students are actually not usually included in the census when it's taken every year, because their family's like, oh yeah, they'll count them when they're at college, but then they themselves at college think that their parents will be counting them. So that's also something that's current right now, and just to make sure that we're being mindful of those types of important political things. So since all this has been happening, I guess the real question around this is, what do we do? Because essentially every aspect of our lives, like life as we know it has just not been the same. Like I listed, a handful of things, but there's so many other things that, I might not even be aware of that are changed. They are being affected in people's lives, and rather exponentially, honestly. Like take this whole idea of social distancing, just the fact that we have to spend less time interacting with people, that can honestly affect people's emotional well-being and their physical well-being as well. You're spending less time with your family, with your friends, your community members, just your loved ones, people that you care about. And we're already on our phones enough. I feel like being at home, it's important to not just have more screen time. Like that's not one of the things that you should be doing. I mean, yes, if you need time to kill, okay, maybe that is a time, that is something you can do if you're bored. However, I think that there is a silver lining here, because the world that we live in right now is always just like a go, go, go. We're always on the move, especially college students, I feel for sure. There's just no time for anything, sometimes not even ourselves, and not even then for our family. And so I feel like now that everybody is essentially forced to stay home, to stay safe, stay with your family, work from home as much as you can. You know, we're seeing more and more of our family, and I think that that's, I mean, of course, like if you have siblings, like that could get annoying because they're just up in your face like all the time. But I think that there is a silver lining, like I said, just the fact that, you know, you are able to spend more time with them, you know, like play some games, like catch a hobby, you know, go outside and play. I mean, you know, in your backyard, not like at the beach or whatever. But yeah, I mean, just like spending time with your family, whether it's like watching a movie together or something, or just having a discussion. And don't just be in the same house, like in your own worlds on your own phones, because otherwise, you know, what is the point? You should just be spending more time together. Honestly, this can also be a time for yourself, just like a spiritual retreat in a way. Because like I said, like we're always on the move, we're always just thinking about the next thing, trying to get the next task done. And I feel like we never really sit down with ourselves and just reflect about, you know, everything that's going on. And just connecting to the previous vlog that I had, which by the way was so long ago. I've just been so busy this semester, but finally, obviously I have time right now to do this. But yeah, I just think that it's important to, you know, just meditate, just reflect, set some goals for yourself, because if you don't set goals and think about how you can improve and just be a better version of yourself, better version of you, then, you know, that you're just gonna be doing the same things every day, and you're not really gonna be moving up to the next, like, level, if you will. So I think just spending time for yourself, like a me day, and also just thinking about, you know, moving forward, like what would you like to change about, like your habits and just about your time management, maybe, like whatever it is for you, maybe working out. Even though, like, we're encouraged not to go to the gym because that's not a good place to go to right now. I mean, there are like people there and everything, but just like touching all those instruments is just not a good idea. But yeah, you can do like some at-home exercises. There's tons of apps out there for anything, honestly, so definitely check that out. I know that with the virus essentially being sensationalized, that a lot of people are freaking out about what's going on in the world, especially the fact that it has caused a significant number of deaths, and we do have a significant number of cases in the US that's, you know, increasing exponentially. And I think that we're just not taking the right measures to decrease the spreading of this virus. But we will get through this. We will overcome. I mean, we've gone through another pandemic before, after World War I, with the flu that originated in Europe. Which, by the way, like, a lot of people are finding it okay for some reason to call this virus the Chinese virus, which I really don't think is, well, obviously is not the right way to refer to it, because, okay, like, yes, it might have originated in that part of Asia, but you don't have the right to associate that with the whole country, because especially, like, now we're hearing stories about Asian Americans, or just like Asians in general, that are being targeted and attacked because of their ethnicity, and because people are, you know, have that weird mindset in them, like, you are the enemy, which I think is just completely absurd. And people should not be making those remarks. So if you see anybody who's doing that, definitely put them down, put them in their place. In a kind manner, of course. I just think it's sad because I saw like a handful of articles from like news stations, and they literally like referred to this pandemic as a Chinese virus. That's not what it's called. You know, if you do have extra time on your hands and you really want to learn more about how pandemics like this can just, you know, arise in the first place, I really encourage you to watch the movie Contagion. I think it's a really good movie that just can depict how a pandemic can occur in a country, and it's very interesting in terms of how it relates exactly to our problem. So it actually started with like a bat, but I believe the bat like poisoned a tree. It's very interesting. Like, you need to watch like the entire movie. But yeah, it just kind of ended up having this domino effect where the virus itself just affected like or I don't remember if it was a virus, but it was something, and it affected so many different people. It was some sort of disease. But definitely watch it. I'll try to put that as well in the description. I guess going off of the movie for sure, and relating it to real life, the virus doesn't really care if you're black or white, rich or poor. Like, it can affect anybody and everybody. For instance, like the NCAA tournament, March Madness, is just being completely canceled. I'm sure everybody heard. And side note, I feel like once that news came out, like, everybody started taking this a bit more seriously, because the tournament itself, just the fact that those big events were completely canceled, I think just really drew everybody back and thought like, oh my gosh, this is actually getting serious. The NBA themselves are even getting like tested, and they're, you know, getting tested positive, and even celebrities too. I'm sure you guys have heard. But yeah, the virus just does not discriminate, like whether, you know, like, it doesn't matter what your socioeconomic class is, like, the virus can affect you. And honestly, it drives me mad when people just don't understand that, like, this is something serious. Like, I'm sure you guys have probably seen the tweet online about people, just especially at the beaches, just like chilling, and they don't like, especially college students, like during the spring break, they just don't understand that this virus can get to you and you can actually die. And the fact that you're out and about, like I mentioned earlier, like, you're just putting everybody at risk. What I'm actually worried about is that when the vaccine is made and it does come out and it's available, I feel like there might be like hesitation as to who is gonna get the vaccine first, like which country, which people in general, like socioeconomic class and everything, or race. I'm kind of worried that that's gonna be like a problem in terms of, like our first world country is gonna have access to the vaccine first just because they have, the means to pay for the vaccine. Or are, people who actually need it more, or are in need of the treatment, in terms of like the ratio of who's sick and who's not in their country, are they going to get it first instead? So I think that's just something that's interesting to think about too. And by the way, guys, if you just put things into perspective, like, yes, this is a very emotional time because everything that we know as the norm is just completely 180, like, has flipped. But like I said, if you do kind of put yourself into perspective with what else is going on in the world, we are just being stressed out. I mean, like, aside from, like graduation and like those important things, I just think that a lot of people are stressed out about the fact that they're just staying at home and that they're bored, which I think to me does not make any sense because, that's just a first world problem. And if you think about people overseas who like don't have something as simple to access to clean running water, like food in general, and you're just, sad about the fact that your favorite restaurant has closed down, when like some people don't even access to a simple meal in one day, I think that just kind of drives me insane as well. Of course, not to say that everything that I just discussed and listed off is not important. I mean, of course it is, but I just want us to also realize that, yes, we are put in the circumstances, but it could be worse. At least when we are home, we're safe. We have a roof over our heads. We can still make, a home-cooked meal. We can still take a shower with clean water, or just, like drink out of our mugs and everything. Like, we have, like, we are living a luxurious life if you compare it to people who, by the way, are still affected by this pandemic because it's a global pandemic. If you just compare like our resources to theirs, it really does put into perspective, because everything that I just listed off that we have, that we take for granted a lot of the times, other people just would wish that they have it. And so them being affected by the virus, and for instance, even like homeless people, when you tell them like, okay, everybody should stay home, like they don't even have a home. I just think a lot of people are making this a bigger deal than it is, just in the sense that you're not being appreciative for the fact that you are staying at home and that you do have these luxuries. So of course, like, this is still stressful. I mean, people that you care about can die, but I'm just saying, put it into perspective, and it's not necessarily doomsday is what I'm trying to say. So in terms of the biological aspect of this virus, I know that some of you might have like some background on like how that works and everything. So we all know that when we're young, we get, a few vaccines just so that we're not susceptible to any viruses as we grow older. Essentially, what happens when you take a vaccine is that it's kind of like a inactive version of a virus, if you will, that can't really affect you, and so your body will learn to see this as a foreign material and essentially like build, like, just remember what this virus looks like, so that in the future, even if you do get in contact with the virus, your body is able to quickly recognize it as something foreign because it already has, like, you can kind of say like data about it, and so it can act upon that. What's very difficult about this strain specifically, and by the way, a strain is just like a version, so there are other strains of the coronavirus, but COVID-19 specifically is one strain that is causing this global pandemic worldwide. So what's actually really difficult about this specific strain of the virus and just finding that vaccine is the fact that it can undergo something called horizontal gene transfer. And what that means is essentially, if there's a cat, for example, and this cat has the virus, and it passes it on to a human, and it, human is affected by it, essentially the virus can take parts of its genome and kind of mix it with the genome of the cat, and then even the genome of the human. And that makes it really hard to find in terms of the proteins that are on the outside, or like the code of the virus, that our body should be able to recognize, if we are like able to build immunity to fight against it. But with it being able to just, evolve over time, and just with every different type of species that does infect and that species that passes it down, that just makes it very difficult not only to find people who are affected by the virus, but to be able to make that vaccine. And so that's the difficulty with everybody who is researching the virus right now. That's the difficulty that they're having. It's also a really big deal that a lot of these research programs aren't actually funded. And of course, like with this pandemic, they are right now. But the fact of the matter is that they typically aren't, and they should be, because when something like this does happen, that we do already have a lot to go off of to be able to build this vaccine. If you guys want to learn more about that and how everything with like viruses in general work, I mean, I am just a simple bio major, so I learn about different aspects of different topics, but specifically in immunobiology, you can definitely check out many videos online. There are tons of videos on YouTube. Just try not to watch it in terms of the sad like doomsday types of videos. I mean, I know this is like a stressful time, like I mentioned before. However, you do need to know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully we will get through this. We shall overcome. So guys, we really need to end on a positive note. There is definitely a silver lining, and that is just spending more time with your family. A lot of people who work away from home or have to travel a lot are finally able to have that family time, which they really are appreciating at the moment. So that definitely is something that you should appreciate as well. With that, definitely stay at home as much as possible. Find a hobby. If anything, if you need to like talk to your friends, there's always the aspect of social media and technology in general. Just like do a FaceTime. If you need to study, you can still do like study groups. I know that like for Microsoft, we have Microsoft Teams. I'm sure you could do like a Hangouts call or whatever it is on Snapchat. And you can there's always ways to go about it. So if you guys have any questions or comments, definitely feel free to put them in the comments down below. Also, I will be posting some vlogs on my Snapchat more frequently now that I have more time, just like little updates, so definitely follow me at Herbology, so it's the same name as my YouTube channel. And if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe down below and hit that notification bell icon for any updates on my channel. And as always guys, and especially during now, stay safe. Peace.